Hello, friend. You're on the American Stories channel. Here, real-life love stories come alive, amazing, touching, and sincere. Every story is a journey into a world of love, hope, and self-discovery. Dive into our tales, and maybe you'll find a piece of your own life in them. If you enjoy our stories, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Your support inspires us to share even more amazing stories. Nick grew up in Detroit, a city where your future depends on how well you know your way around engines and numbers. His father had spent his whole life working at a car factory, while his mother taught at a local school. From an early age, Nick was fascinated by cars. He helped neighbors with repairs and, by age 15, had assembled his first Cadillac from parts found at a scrapyard. After high school, he couldn't afford college, so he got a job as a mechanic. He worked 12-hour shifts but never gave up his dream, to own his own car dealership. On weekends, he'd buy old cars, fix them up, and sell them for a small profit. Soon he gained his first regular customers and a reputation as the honest guy from the neighborhood. At a car expo in Chicago, Nick met Alice, a dynamic young woman with a background in finance, searching for new investment ideas. Alice instantly recognized something special in Nick, his determination, energy, and genuine smile. She agreed to help him grow his business. She organized the paperwork, built relationships with banks, and developed a marketing strategy. Their partnership worked perfectly. Together, they opened their first dealership, small, but welcoming. They started with just 3 cars, but within a year, they had 20 vehicles on the lot, their first employees, and a tight-knit team. Their business grew quickly, and soon they opened a second location in the suburbs. Everyone knew, if you bought a car from Nick, you got an honest deal and solid advice. Life seemed to be picking up speed. Nick and Alice worked hard but never neglected their personal life. They celebrated every small victory together, shared dreams, took weekend trips to the lake, and made plans for the future. But success always attracts not just friends, but also rivals. A new competitor appeared in town, aggressive, willing to do anything to take over the market. From that moment, fate began to prepare a real test for Nick and Alice, one they never saw coming. The new competitor acted brazenly. At auctions, his people outbid Nick's, scooping up the best cars. More and more often, Nick heard rumors that someone was spreading lies about his business. Customers started sending odd complaints, claims that they'd been scammed, even though nothing of the sort had happened. Nick felt the pressure increasing each day, and even worse, a growing distrust within his own team. One morning, they discovered several of their most expensive cars missing from the warehouse. The security guard insisted he hadn't noticed anything unusual, and the surveillance cameras had, suddenly, stopped working. Nick immediately suspected betrayal from someone inside the team. He began to suspect almost everyone, even his most trusted people, poisoning the workplace atmosphere. The police opened a case but made slow progress, so Nick hired a private detective. During this period, Nick and Alice's relationship began to crack. He became withdrawn and suspicious, spending all his time in the garage or buried in paperwork. Alice, on the other hand, tried to keep the team together, hold on to their reputation, and prevent the business from collapsing. She tried to talk to Nick, but he'd snap, "Not now, we have bigger problems, you just don't understand." For the first time in years, they felt a wall growing between them. Alice cried herself to sleep more than once, unable to find comfort even in her work. She didn't recognize her husband anymore, once strong, open, and honest. Nick believed that only toughness and solitude could save the business. When things were about to fall apart, the detective finally found evidence. An old employee had been leaking information about purchases and clients to their competitors. The financial loss was painful, but the betrayal hurt even more. Nick had considered this person a friend, but he fired him personally. Alice helped him get through the crisis and rallied the team once again. It seemed the worst was over. But life had one more, even greater test in store. A few tense weeks followed the betrayal. The business was barely hanging on, banks were demanding loan repayments, some clients pulled their deposits, and competitors pressed even harder. Nick practically stopped sleeping, patrolling the lot at night, signing documents, and losing interest in everything except work. He was haunted by anger, frustration, and guilt. Maybe he himself was to blame for trusting the wrong people. Alice saw her husband burning out before her eyes. She begged him to rest, delegate some tasks, even see a psychologist. But each time he just said, "Now's not the time. We'll talk when things get better." She felt powerless. Instead, she spent more time supporting the staff and resolving internal disputes. One evening, she decided to have a heart-to-heart with Nick. Their long talk turned into a heated argument. He shouted that nothing would work without him. She retorted that she would lose him as a person, even if she saved the business. "You don't trust me anymore. And you won't let me help." That very night, driving home from a late shift, Nick got into a serious accident. It was raining, he was exhausted, distracted, and didn't see the truck braking ahead of him. His car skidded, hit the barrier, and everything went black. When he regained consciousness, the first thing he saw was Alice's face. She held his hand and tried to smile through tears. The doctors gave a grim prognosis: severe spinal and leg injuries, months of rehabilitation, and possibly never walking again. For a man who'd always been in control, always on his feet, it was a cruel verdict. The first weeks after the accident, Nick barely spoke, hardly reacted to visitors, and ate only when forced. He was tormented by nightmares and haunted by thoughts. Was life even worth living if he could no longer fight, if everything he'd built was falling apart? But Alice refused to give up. Every day she came to the hospital, brought business reports, shared team news, and read aloud motivational letters from customers who'd heard about the accident on social media. She even organized a video call where the entire staff sent their support to Nick. Some even cried. This touched him deeply, though it didn't immediately change his state of mind. The hardest thing was watching Alice exhaust herself. She ran between the hospital and the office, lost weight, and barely slept. But one day, when Nick saw her asleep in a chair beside his bed, something inside him changed. He realized, even if he never walked again, even if the business collapsed, life went on, as long as there was someone who truly loved him. From that day, Nick agreed to start rehabilitation. It was excruciating, pain, fear, disappointment, but each day, he made a small step forward. He learned to write with his left hand when his right was immobilized, read business books, and offered the team advice online. He saw that Alice could keep the business afloat without him, sometimes even better than he had. His faith in her grew, and with it, faith in himself. Rehabilitation lasted for months. Days of pain, setbacks, small victories, and new failures. But Nick didn't give up. He was fueled by Alice's love and unwavering faith. She joked, scolded, sometimes even threatened not to let him back into the business if he didn't get out of bed. Slowly, Nick began to recover. He learned to walk with a cane, even though the doctors had doubted he ever would. He got even more involved in business. He developed a new online sales strategy, launched a loyalty program for customers, and opened 2 new online car sales platforms alongside Alice. The team welcomed Nick back to work with a standing ovation, applauding, hugging, thanking him for returning. Everyone understood, their boss was a true leader, someone who'd proven that even after the hardest blow, you can get back up. Nick and Alice began to treasure every day. They weren't afraid of tough choices anymore and no longer put off adventures or gatherings with friends. Their love had become deeper and more genuine, without illusions or fears. They were now a team that no storm could break. A year passed since the accident. The business was thriving, Alice had taken on even more responsibility, and Nick became a mentor for young people, holding motivational meetings, helping interns, and setting up a charitable fund for kids from low-income families who dreamed of a career in the automotive world. In the city, their story became legend, how they overcame all hardships together, never lost themselves, and never gave up. The former competitor had to leave the market, and Nick even offered jobs to some of his staff, showing that honesty and generosity always win in the end. Alice and Nick often remembered what they'd been through, but those memories no longer hurt. Instead, they inspired new victories, fueled the team, and became an example to others. In the evenings, when the city quieted down, Nick would step out onto his porch, breathe in the fresh air, and think, if not for all these trials, we'd never know who we really are. Life gives chances only to those who know how to fight and believe. And I'm lucky to have someone like Alice by my side. Their story became a legend, a tale of real love, struggle, and victory over fate. Because the greatest victory isn't over competitors or circumstances, but over yourself.